Hey guys, welcome to the 5th episode of Raw Vocal Effects 101. As you can read in the video title, today's topic is supposed to be the false chord scream, but there's a little disclaimer I have to make right in the beginning. There is no such thing as a false chord scream. Okay, don't stop this video yet, especially if you're looking for this kind of sound, you're in the right place. But there's a couple things about the term false chord scream that we'll have to dismantle first before going on to the more practical stuff. Okay, so what's my problem with that term again, and why haven't I already included false chord scream in my episode on false fold techniques? Well, because it's not that simple. If I do a sound like this, there's actually 4 different tissues involved in making that sound. Yes, the false vocal folds, but also the arytenoid cartilage, the aryepiglottic folds, and to a certain extent even the true vocal folds, even though many people will tell you the opposite. So, if we want to be accurate, the sound usually referred to as false chord scream is actually a combination of multiple effects. You might say that at this point this is only semantics, but the way we call things also influences how we see them, so I prefer to use the name death growl instead. Complete vocal technique, which is one of the few singing methods that actually teach rough vocal effects, also calls this sound grunt, so I'm gonna use these terms interchangeably. Okay, now that we've talked about that, let's find death growl. As we're trying to access the same tissues as for false fold distortion and arytenoid rattle, we're going to do similar exercises to find it. So again, clearing your throat. And making a sound as if you're super annoyed. Those might be easy ways for you to find death growl. This time though, try not to have any audible pitches in there anymore, so not or but a very relaxed and atonal sound. If it helps, you can imagine that you're projecting the sound through your face, sort of like we found fry scream. So, yeah. Other possible ways of finding death growl are imitating Batman, I am Batman, and barking like a dog. Woof, 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 woof. Beware not to push too much though. You don't have to be loud, especially in the beginning. A very safe and relaxed ooh, ooh, ooh sound is enough. Now that we have our basic death growl, there's a lot of parameters we can work with to further modify the sound. As is true for all atonal screaming techniques, it's the vowel shapes that will have the biggest influence on whether we perceive it as a high, mid or low scream. If I go for a very bright, open and fronted ah vowel, I'm gonna end up with a high scream. Yeah! Whereas if I go for more centralized, lazy vowel shapes like I'm gonna get more of a mid-scream sound. And if I go for rounded vowel shapes like o, and oo, I'm gonna get different shades of low screams. Oh! If I want an even darker version, I can also let my tongue roll back, just as it would for the American R consonant. Again, I'm playing around with different grades of lip rounding here to get this kind of tunnel throat scream. If you've ever heard the term tunnel throat, it's not really a separate screaming technique, but just a way to shape our vocal tract in order to get this very deep, brutal, and almost demonic sound. Same goes for pig squeals. Pig squealing is not really a screaming technique on its own either, but just, you can think of it as overtone screaming. Because if I do the underlying vowel shapes are sort of this. Brighter and darker versions of that R consonant, yeah? If this letting the tongue roll back thing is kind of hard for you right now, you can also try it on different vowel shapes between E and U. So, E also produces an overtone scale. And if we apply that back to screaming, we get kind of a light version of the pig squeal. This is possible in every atonal screaming technique, not just the death growl. So, for example, if I do it in hypercompressed screaming, it would sound like this. Slightly different timbre, but the same resonance shaping we do here. A more advanced way of modifying death growl would be to regulate the grade of involvement for each respective tissue. So if you try to get a relaxed death growl like that would be more of an arytenoid dominant death growl, whereas if you constrict more and have more of that through the face feeling, that would be more of a false fault dominant death growl. You can also try to voice the death growl, like, so that you still can sort of hear the underlying pitch. That would be a true fault dominant death growl. The opposite of that is applying a whispery feeling to it, resulting in a very quiet death growl with the least possible true fault involvement. With the true vocal folds, you can also regulate from which underlying mechanism you approach death growl. So if you start in modal voice, this might result in a chestier tone, whereas if you start in falsetto, this might result in a headier tone. One last parameter to influence the sound color of your death growl is your larynx position. So if you try to speak like
SpongeBob, with a very nasty and bright tone, yeah? Your larynx will raise, and that might help
to get you an even brighter high scream. Whereas if you try to speak more like Patrick, in that kind of dopey sound, your larynx will lower, and that might give you more of that dark sound. Okay, so let's wrap this up again. Today I've introduced to you the death growl, grunt, or false chord scream, and also talked about how we can influence its sound color by changing the mouth shape, tongue position, larynx position, underlying coordination, and dominant involved tissue, so that now you can learn to do all the variations of it, including high scream, mid scream, low scream, tunnel throat scream, and pig squeal. If you want to support me or that series, which I've already put a lot of time and work into, you can send me a little bit of money to the PayPal I've linked in the video description. Also, if you found that helpful, you can like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell. If you have any questions or criticism, feel free to leave a comment. I'd be happy to have a conversation with you. Good luck and good night.